Either we are there or not, ITSPmagazine still gets the best stories. There are plenty of conferences and all sorts of events that spark our curiosity and allow us to start conversations with some of the world's brightest minds. In person or virtually, we sit down with them at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Together, we discover what the synergy of these three elements means for the future of humanity. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
And we're back.
Look at that, Marco. It's lockdown time. Don't move. Don't move. You're in your spot. Stay in your spot. Stay in your lane.
Especially when you're in the middle of the desert where you feel already locked down in Vegas. Like, how much is this coffee? You want it? That's how much it costs. So you want to go somewhere else?
That's right.
But this is something more.
You have to wait in line 45 minutes to find out how much it's going to be, though.
Yeah, you pay with your time and your money, but that's a conversation for another time. We're connected, streaming live from Las Vegas, or at least the people that are there. And we made a joke about lockdown. David, what's going on?
Well, I'm currently locked down because the Vice President of the United States is in town. And she's giving a speech to the Union of Steelworkers. I think that's disappointed a lot of people who thought she was coming to Black Hat, but there you go.
Yeah, that would have been something. That would make a statement, right?
But alas, you get us.
Yeah, I think the steelworkers are more important than us, right?
Exactly.
We gotta build stuff. We'll save we'll save society digitally, and they can keep building smart cities with steel. But David, it's great to see you, and glad you made the journey from the UK to Vegas safe and sound. What's going on?
Well, obviously we're back really properly for the first time. There's a lot of people here. I think people are sort of starting to feel a little bit more confident about traveling and obviously visiting these events. Interestingly, there's not a sort of mandatory mask policy at Black Hat. It's kind of recommended, but there's really relatively few people wearing masks. But at B-sides and at DEF CON, it's a mandatory mask policy. So I'm not sure what the scientific outcome will be after all of this, but at least the talks are good so far.
Well, tell us about those. What have you seen?
Well, so I popped down to B-sides yesterday, and I was hanging around the I Am the Cavalry track, which is largely policy related. So Bo Woods and Josh Corman, who set up I Am the Cavalry, have done an absolutely fantastic job of bringing together the hacking community and also sort of policymakers and people in federal agencies and across the world, really. And it was great to see, what we've sort of collectively achieved in different areas, whether it be medical device security or IoT security or automotive security. Those two guys and the collective of people around them have really, really, changed the world. So that was brilliant. And there's sort of emerging conversations that have been coming out of that are really national policy issues in the United States and across the world. So things like software bill of materials is quite a critical conversation this week. And even going into Black Hat and then DEF CON, because DEF CON for the first time has a full policy stream, which is kind of unusual, really, because you don't really think that the hackers would kind of be involved with these types of policy issues. But actually, a lot of the issues that we're seeing, a lot of the stuff that security researchers uncover have a really direct relation to policy. So some really cool stuff around the right to repair, the risks for food security in sort of e-agriculture or connected agriculture, and a lot of cool talks around automotive as well.
A lot of things that hit society directly, and I mean, Josh and Bo, they do so much, and you throw in the biohacking village into the mix, and those guys really move the needle. I had to say that. That's pun intended.
Yeah. No, and I think not everybody has the ability to sort of lead and bring people with them. and to connect those two completely different worlds. And they've done such a good job. And obviously they've been involved in CISA as well. So CISA are quite active here, and talking to a lot of people. But the other thing that I've noticed as well, and the talk that I've just come out of, is obviously Ukraine. And that have happened so far have been absolutely rammed. People are very, very interested in what's happening there. And also for people who haven't been speaking here, because if you think when the CFPs for Black Hat and DEF CON took place and people were preparing talks, there wasn't actually a war in Ukraine. So it's been kind of interesting, because some of the talks that I would have expected to be here are not. There's a company called Adaptive Mobile who've done a lot of work on mobile attacks in Ukraine. But of course, they didn't expect to be doing that talk this year. But ESET this morning gave a presentation on Indestroyer 2, which is a follow-up to their presentation in 2017 at Black Hat, which was really centered around the sandworm actor and what was going on around disabling the sort of country's electricity network through various mechanisms. And there was a further attempt this year, and they essentially managed to stop it. And so the talk was all about that. And they had Victor Zora there, who is the State Service of Special Communications in Ukraine, and he explained how they worked with the different providers and different companies to get the IOCs out really, really quickly, how the attack worked and so on. And it was really incredible to see, how organized the response was. And it prevented, a mass blackout across the entire country of Ukraine.
Yeah, the thing that you're touching now is really relevant, and it's coming out, I think, with almost everyone that we're talking to. And I'm going to quote Miko, that we talked to him yesterday, Miko Hippon, and he concluded when I said, what is different now compared with 31 years ago when you started? It's that now we don't just fix vulnerability on hardware or software. We're just actually try to fix or prevent problem in society, which is a very big responsibility. But just what you said, it just showed this. It showed the fact that it's not this hypothetical situation anymore, but actually all the legwork that we've done in this industry. Well, I wish we didn't need it, but at least we are somehow more prepared now. So very important.
What came through to me in that talk, and it's something, obviously I chair the Mobile Industries Fraud and Security Group, and we're dealing with a lot of legacy protocols. It's very difficult to get rid of them because of the economic cost of all this legacy equipment from years and years ago. And you see this in the automotive domain as well. And in this case as well, there was a very legacy protocol that was used in the sort of electrical and OT world, no authentication. And so it was actually relatively easy for the attacker to target that particular thing. It was kind of, it was all to do electrical control equipment. And so, when you've got a very, very serious threat actor and they can spend a lot of time on very obscure equipment and very carefully craft an attack, you have to wonder, how easy it is for us to be able to defend against that stuff. But what has been shown is that sort of multi-layered response. It's not just about the technical responses we have, but being organized in advance and being prepared has enabled us to collectively stop what is essentially evil. There's no other word for it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've had a chance to get a sense of it yet or not, but are you seeing a sense of collaboration that perhaps might be different than years past, in terms of technology collaborations, information sharing collaborations, companies coming together? Or what are you seeing or hearing?
Yeah, it's gradually been going that way anyway, to be honest with you. But I think the sort of lingua franca of these cross-industry initiatives, people, when people say the word amber, everybody understands what they mean, but even like probably 10 years ago, a lot of people wouldn't understand what that really meant. And so I think that's really sort of smoothing the way. The same with the different sort of policy discussions as well. I think we all recognize where the problems are. There's a multilateral response and collaborative response. So IoT security is a very, very good example where the initiatives in the US and the UK and in Europe are very well aligned. We're all easily saying the same things. And really everybody in the world wants the same thing, which is to avoid some kind of real serious safety scenario. And I think that's where also the security researchers align with industry and governments. There is that fundamentally a lot of the hacking community want to do good, and they don't want this stuff to be totally insecure, and they often highlight that.
I left space for you, Marco, and you didn't take it.
I know, I'm retweeting stuff. Sorry. I'm retweeting to people to follow this. I'm working. It's not that I'm tweeting other things. No, one thing that I'm curious, because the globality, right, of things, and how we're learning how everything is so well connected, and how the old distribution chain, it's, you break a piece here and we're all stuck. I mean, this war is showing something like this. Do you have a perspective, being in the UK and working with the US and other part of the world, that there is some sort of a global community that comes together, or is still about more like country-wise initiative, and we're missing that cohesion and that strategy that we can all have and maybe prevent more problems?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting actually, because it feels like a two-faced problem. So on the one hand, there's a hell of a lot of collaboration. So in my own industry, from every single country, from companies globally, trying to protect their citizens. But then on the other hand, we see bifurcation in the internet. We see, with Russia shutting down to create RuNet. We see the actions of the Chinese state as well. And you realize that actually, even though at a human level we are all the same, and certainly when we're talking to an engineering level, everybody's working collaboratively. At a political level, that isn't the case. And I think you do kind of stop yourself sometimes and realize that actually, some countries want to do your country harm, and not everybody actually likes each other. So it's finding a sort of path through that, because on supply chain particularly, we've gone to a state where everything is globalized, and then the pandemic and various sort of tensions around the world have caused that to be disrupted. And what I've seen is that sort of caused a bit of an entrenchment by all countries to look towards, more domestic manufacture for things, to ensure resiliency and to reduce supply chain risk. But that's causing a lot of disruption. And it's simply not possible in some cases to completely make yourself self-sufficient. Everything from raw materials to glass for fiber optics. There are different specialisms around the world, and you can't just say, oh yeah, well, we'll just do that now. It's simply not possible to do that, at least not in the short term. But I think even in the longer term, there are certain places in the world that you can get certain raw materials, and that's just a fact.
So, David, you and I had the pleasure of chatting with you on an episode of Redefining Cybersecurity. We talked about IoT and consumer privacy. My sense for these conferences, they tend to focus on the B2B, right? So business operations and maybe some of the building hardware. When you get into DEF CON, you have the hardware security stuff, building IoT devices secure. Are you seeing much, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's coming through in some of the stuff that the policy things you're focusing on, gets into consumer privacy? Because clearly we talked in depth about consumer privacy, touched specific to IoT, but what's your sense of privacy is from a consumer perspective thus far?
I would say that it's very low down the agenda. And that's not because there aren't very real concerns about this. I think, obviously there was a lot of focus on privacy in the past few years because of GDPR and because of CCPA and so on. But I think that the sort of pendulum has swung at the moment towards very real operational security issues because of the issues that we've faced around the world and the issues that we've faced with the pandemic. So I would say it's really not a primary focus at this event. But of course, it's part of the job role of the majority of the business people here, and a concern of everybody here. Right? We all want our data to stay private.
Yeah. So I know it's just the beginning, and I'm assuming you'll be there for a few days. I don't know if you're going to hit DEF CON as well, but is there something that you hope to see that you haven't, or hear that you haven't heard yet, or maybe something that when you look at the agenda of the keynotes and the speakers are like, this is interesting, but I wish they would talk more about this. And I'm just connecting with what you just said right now, but something at a larger scale.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that I think Chris Krebs said in his opening talk, it's like, right, what next? Where are we going from here? And I feel that myself is, we've done a heck of a lot to pass things into law and to regulate and to take defensive action. But as the world has suddenly kind of gone into upheaval, there is this kind of taking stock that's going on right now. And of course, I mean, the other thing about DEF CON as well, particularly, I think, is that the talk schedule is probably not what it would have been in normal years. So I think it's that sort of introspection that's going on with everybody. Interestingly, I was talking to a colleague as well. So we would have seen in previous years, of course, people drop in O days, really kind of cool, interesting talks in certain areas.
I think it went in full lockdown there.
The computer took the advice.
I think they shut down the internet because the vice president.
And we're seeing less of that, and I wonder if that is. I wonder if that is.
David.
I'm afraid that we have a live problem here, a live streaming problem. Oh, you're back.
I think back.
Yeah, we kind of lost about probably the totality of the last thing that you said. So
okay, what was I saying? Okay, so I'll start again. So one thing I have observed, and I was talking to a colleague about this the other day, is that in previous years we would have had lots of O days and really, really interesting talks in new areas that nobody had looked at. And I feel like we've kind of done a lot of that now. So some of the talks are very measured, or you have somebody like Google, for example, talking about stuff they themselves have found in Android. And it doesn't feel like it had the sort of like edgy vibe to it used to have. And I wonder if that is just a reflection on the fact that things like vulnerability disclosure are so mature now, and we've grown up as a hacking community as well about how to deal with these things properly. So I'm not saying that it's job done by any means, but there's definitely a maturity in what's going on here. But then, I'm giving a talk in the car hacking village on Friday about a car hacking rig that we've put together. There's an increasing exposure of the attack surface on certain sort of legacy devices that are now getting loads and loads of functionality. They're connected to the internet, and then you can do micropayments and all this kind of stuff. So we're probably entering a new era that we don't properly understand. of future attacks. And as I say, we're sort of in this take stock stage of, where do we go next?
Yeah, and I mean the villages, and to your point, the talks at DEF CON are certainly different, and I think the goal is to really get hands-on with the things that we're using in our world, right? So perhaps a little less of the zero-day dropping and more of the how does this stuff work and how does it impact society, and let's get our hands dirty in this stuff. And it's great to hear that you have that session, that talk. I believe we just actually recorded our chats on the road with Justin from Car Hacking Village. Cool. And so we know that the talks will be on their YouTube channel, so folks can catch your talk on the Car Hacking Village YouTube. And hopefully then if they're there in Vegas, they can also stop by and check out the village and mess around with things there. Well, David, anything else? Any other final thoughts before we say goodbye and hit our next guest on the stream?
Well, no, it's been fantastic to be here, and just hope that everyone who is here just stays safe and that we have a good event. I will get around to submitting my talk on hacking cat flaps at some point. I just haven't got around to it yet.
Yeah. Nice. No, I have to thank you, because I think you made some point really relevant that kind of made me thought about how you have to kind of tone down the language or change the language when you're starting to bring not just the techie, the hacking community, but also the policymakers, the business, and then it's kind of like, it's softened, but maybe reach more people. So actually, I'd love to talk about this point on a future podcast with you, maybe, because I think it's a very important way to look at the industry from maybe from an outside perspective and see what is going on in this glass globe. But again, as Sean said, it was a pleasure having you. I hope we keep you company while you were locked in the in the hotel. It was definitely a pleasure for us. So
hopefully others locked down. Maybe we kept them company as well. Who knows?
I might have to watch the podcast while I'm stuck here.
There you go. All right. Thank you very much. Be safe.
Thanks, David. Good to see you. Safe journey. Enjoy the week. And thanks everybody for watching. We have loads more today and lots more throughout the rest of the week. So stay tuned. ITSPmagazine.com/BHDC22. Peace out. See ya.
Peace out.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of our on-location conversation. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share ITSPmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.